Thank you for joining us today for this newest episode of the John Thomas Hill Show, the second one. And we're taking a pretty lofty title. We aren't the greatest country in the world anymore, but we can be again. I remember looking a few days ago at Jeff, I can't think of his name, from the Newsroom, the HBO show from a few years back where Jeff Bridges, I believe, no, it's not Jeff Bridges, it was, I can't think of his name. Anyhow, basically he goes out there, this college student asks the guy, the anchor, what makes America so great and the greatest country in the world? And he says, we're not. There's a lot of truth to that, unfortunately. But I don't look at it as being kind of like, oh my God, how dare he say something like that? More along the lines of, he has a point, we need to listen to it, and we need to take it under consideration. We're not anymore. We're simply not. I wish we were. But we have fallen in a lot of things. And how we get back to that is very simple. We find out what made us great to begin with. First of all, we have to reinvest in the public education system. I don't mean simply pay teachers more. They should be paid teachers more. We need to have a full investment in our public education system. No more of this nonsense about banning books and all of that. If you want religion, in your schools, there's a perfect place to go for that. It's called a church. If you want to study the Bible, go to a church. I mean, nothing. If you want to have FCA, the Future Fellow Christian Athlete, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, whatever they call it, and all that, that's perfectly fine. If you want to have a religious club in a secular school, as long as they're not getting direct funding from the school, that's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with on days when school is not, like in weekends and such, churches renting out schools, as long as they pay for any other civic group would do so for that. But the truth is, our schools need to get back to basics. We need to get fundamentals in English, science, social sciences, math, and these kids need to be disciplined, to learn discipline, to learn about hard work and ethics and, doing the right thing and, at least trying. And that's a big part of the problem is a lot of parents just think that they're the ones that should have absolute total control of a kid's education. The truth is, education is not just about you. It's about in your kids. It's about the entire community. It's about the entire nation. Okay? Our school system should be preparing our children not just to be great workers in their jobs, but also great citizens for their country. Informed citizens, critical thinking citizens. And we're not doing that. Also, we need to understand that the private sector cannot solve all of America's problems. 40 some odd years ago, Ronald Reagan, in his speech during the 1980 campaign, said something along the lines of, the government is the problem, not the solution. Well, neither is the private sector, as we've seen over these last 40 some odd years. And it's becoming more and more of a push to privatize everything. We've seen that there are abuses in privatizing our prison system, where you're having a profit motive to put people in jail. And what used to be where you would get parole and such like that, now we're locking people up. For no other reason that, hey, we need to make a profit, let's lock these people up instead of, I don't know, maybe helping to turn their lives around, perhaps. And then we go to our healthcare system. We are the only industrialized nation that does not have a nationalized healthcare system. Our entire healthcare system is privatized, and it does not make any sense at all. And what's sad is that the myths we've been told that, oh, Canada has so many waiting lines, and so is the United Kingdom and Australia and such, they're not necessarily true. And in fact, even when they are, compared to when you wait for something in the United States. Like right now, my doctor that I go to, general practitioner, just getting an appointment is ridiculous. And it forces you to walk in. You don't know how long you're going to wait. That pretty much ruins your day. And so, you're at the mercy of a privatized healthcare system, which does not really care about you as a person. It only sees you as a customer. And pardon me, but that's full of bullocks, in my honest opinion. Then we go to what they really want to go to. Is pretty much privatize everything. Schools, hospitals, police systems and such, and roads. The truth is, when we realized we had to build roads, remember that once upon a time, those 2-lane blacktops out in the country that connected town to town and city to city were all that we had. And then Dwight Eisenhower, in his wisdom and practicality, because those 4-lane and 8-lane highways, those big old highways you see, they weren't necessarily meant to connect cities together. They're meant to help people flee the cities when the bombs hit, if you don't know that. We need the biggest issue we have been neglecting for decades in this country is infrastructure. The key to making America truly great again is having a great infrastructure. That doesn't just mean roads. That means train systems. That means busing systems. That means public transport. That means people being able to go back and forth to work in cities and suburbs and rural areas. But the truth is that we complain about taxes. We don't complain about the fact of how they are being spent. And the truth is that a lot of it is wasteful. Look at our military. We're going to be on course to spend, probably before the end of this decade, $1 trillion a year for our military. What are we protecting? What are we protecting? Just a corporate bunch of multi-billionaires and their industries? And that's another problem. The capitalist system we have right now is not really the capitalist system that we were all taught. I call it corporatism, which is basically a few companies control most of the industries. From grocery stores to media companies to telecom companies to retailers to gas stations. There isn't a whole lot of competition out there. Once upon a time, we broke these trusts up. Teddy Roosevelt was really good about that. 1984, AT&T got broke up. It spurred a lot of competition. Now, AT&T is where it once was. Now you've got Verizon and T-Mobile, but are they really any better? You tell me. Yeah, you've got these smaller companies, but all of these smaller telecom companies are owned by the bigger ones. Once upon a time, we had mom and pop shops all over the place, and they've been replaced by retail chains, and now retail chains are dying, except for Walmart, and even they are being challenged by Amazon. Dollar General and Dollar Tree and Family Dollar are all out there, but the specialty retailers are dying. Part of it is because people like sitting at home and buying stuff and having it delivered to them. Part of it is because people don't feel comfortable doing it anymore. We have a crime problem in this country. And it's not because of immigration or anything like that. It's because we have people who flat out think that we're ruled by big corporate billionaire overlords. So why not? Why not go in, break in and steal stuff, and if you get caught, oh well, you get 3 hots and a cot. I think that's a main big reason why a lot of crime's going on, because people don't care. They get caught, oh well. How do we get back to being the best country in the world? I mentioned earlier about education. We have to pay teachers what they're worth. We have to treat them as the professionals they are, like as if they were doctors and lawyers. We have to pay our police officers enough and expect them to have the same kind of degrees a teacher would have. We need them to have college education, not just a few weeks of training and throw you out on the roads and hopefully you know what you're doing. That is the main reason we have so much problems right now, is because we throw these people out there on the roads acting as cops without having the full training of being a cop. Cops need to be held accountable for their actions. I'm all for supporting cops, all for supporting our law enforcement officers, but like anybody else in any other job, they need to be held accountable when they do wrong. And this whole idea of protecting the blue line is ludicrous. We need to have a system in place where good cops are promoted, bad cops are punished, and the cream really does rise to the top, because it will protect. And they're not just arresting people, but they're actually involved in the community to help lower crime. The problem is when you have a privatized prison system and jail system, you need customers. That's really what bugs me, is the fact that now all of a sudden we have a privatized system, because we've been told all these 40 years that the private sector is oh so great, when in reality it's not. Not really. It isn't. It hasn't been. And for people to say that it's better than the public system, no. It's not going to help it overcrowding. I mean, just cram them in like sardines. Here's a big reason we have issues these days. We have, in the last 40 some odd years, forgone the rights of the average worker. The middle class has shrunk to practically nothing. You're either rich or poor. No in between. No middle class anymore. And that needs to change. We need to go back to the way Eisenhower had it, which was, yeah, you tax the rich, but if the rich are willing to invest in building new factories, bringing in new equipment for these new factories, hiring new workers, more workers, paying them well, you get tax exemption, you get tax cuts, tax benefits, and all that. Analyze what they did in the past. There are a lot of bad things in the 50s, plenty of racism and all that, but there were some good things, like the fact that we built highways. We built, and we still had, a passenger train system. This Amtrak today is not nearly what it once was. In some ways, I think we do need to federalize the Amtrak and Greyhound and all that to a certain degree, or at least a public-private partnership where rural areas are covered as well as urban and suburban areas. I could go on and on about this. Look at our political system. It's a joke. I mean, I mentioned the other day, I'm not a fan of either political party, and Democrats are going, well, we're not like the Republicans. Yeah, you're not, but that does make you a whole lot better. The whole system needs to be reformed. We need to get rid of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We need more parties. A center-right party, center-left party, centrist party, to where there's nobody in the majority. and that power is diffused out from the center. One person shouldn't be entirely in charge. They should be held accountable. This is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Trump, because everybody on Trump's side is always praising Trump. Nope. I don't believe in one person. I'm not a fan of Biden either. I pick Biden over Trump, but not because Biden's so much better. It's because Trump's worse. And he's taking us to some place where, yeah, you never thought it would happen. But the truth is, both of them, I'm not particularly a fan of, because we need government to focus on infrastructure, proper education, not banning books, but basically getting better science scores, better all-around students, social sciences and critical thinking and all of this, and understanding the world around them. And I could go on and on about this. The truth is that we have a system right now in this country where corporations rule. The government is at the behest of the corporations. The government should be ideally the referee between the corporations, big business, and the people and the consumers, the employees and the consumers. The government should be protecting workers' rights. Instead, they're doing more. Now, I saw the other day in Florida, the state government is telling cities you cannot put in rules to regulate breaks, rest breaks, just to get a sip of water. I mean, do you not understand productivity, folks? These are people that they for some reason think that if you go to work, you have to go hardcore 8 hours. Not understanding that productivity, no one can be completely focused on their job 8 hours straight without a break or lunch or anything like that. How many more studies do we have to put together to show that frequent rest periods, frequent breaks, lunch periods, where workers are basically doing essentially 2 hour sprints, essentially. 2 hours break, 2 hours lunch, 2 hours break, 2 hours go home. Makes sense. Our productivity rose when the labor unions won the right for an 8 hour workday and the weekends and all of that. When workers are properly rested, they are productive. But unfortunately, you have people who have all these fancy degrees. Not that there's anything wrong with going to colleges, universities, anything like that. But you need to understand that, like a second lieutenant fresh out of the military academy doesn't know as much as a staff sergeant he or she is in charge of. A college graduate does not know what a worker who's been working at the job 20 years or more knows. And maybe you ought to listen to those people. Instead of thinking, well, I've got all of this book learning, all this fancy degree, and I know more than you do. Not necessarily true. So how do we make America great again? We stop worrying about our divisions and start worrying what we got to have in common. We all love freedom. We all love to be who we want to be. Not being told you have to be this and not that. All this worried about transgenderism and all this bullcrap. It is. We need to worry about making sure that people have the ability to make a decent living. That they're not having to go out and, work 3 jobs just to make it. You seen rents lately? And don't even start on inflation. I think Biden's not got a chance to even fix it because he's not the one running the economy. It's corporations. And they don't like the fact that for a couple of years there, prices were down, wages were going up, people lived fairly well. I mean, that's something about the pandemic, and I'm going to talk about the pandemic at another time. We're coming up Monday on the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic shut everything down. Remember that? It was a wonderful bit of time, unless, of course, you got COVID, of course, or you knew somebody got COVID. You were carrying somebody for COVID. But for those of us who were stuck at home and who didn't go out, who didn't get it, that period of time was boring as all get out. Many of us got cabin fever. And it was basically watching a lot of television. A lot of television. And, of course, doing stuff like podcast, writing, creating stuff, and all of that. A lot of people. And we forgot about that. But the one thing about the pandemic that brings me back to this topic is it could have allowed us to have that feeling of being together, of working toward a common goal of beating this thing. But instead, what happened? We were told it was all a conspiracy. We were told, oh, don't wear your mask. That's infringing your freedoms. Don't social distance. Don't listen to the experts. They're hindering your freedom. We have to understand that experts may not be perfect, but they are knowledgeable. If we'd listened like New Zealanders listened, would have beaten the thing earlier, and we would have had far fewer people die. 1 million plus people died in this country during the pandemic. 1 in 330. Many of us know people who died during the pandemic. And here we are. Excuse me. 4 years later, and we don't know any better. We don't know any better. I'm going to talk more on that at another time. So, how do we get back to being the greatest country in the world? First of all, we learn from other countries. We learn from the ones that are ahead of us. We have a lot of great ideas in this country. We've had a lot of great ideas in this country, but we don't have the monopoly on it. Hey, Finland has better schools. Sweden has better schools. Why not learn from them? Maybe to realize that it's not how hard you work, it's how smart you work. Maybe it's not a good idea to have our kids having to do 2 hours plus homework a night. Maybe let the kids be kids when they're at home and have the schoolwork done during school. Maybe we need to stop having people think that they should know everything about what's going on in the community and trust the people they elect and trust the people that are appointed. Because that is representative government. You can't know every little detail about what's going on. And stop listening to the media that loves to sensationalize everything. Very soon on this podcast, I'm going to go talk about the media. Both traditional, right-wing and left-wing, and podcast and all that, like this. And yeah, I'm going to go off again. But there are no easy answers how to make America great again. Not in the way of Trump, but in the way of, realizing that, yeah, there are problems. We have other countries that are doing better than we are. How do we do better than they are? We learn. We put forth ideas. We stop trying to have it our way or the highway and go, okay, let's try this idea, let's try that idea, and go from there. Because if we don't, and we keep things as divisive as they are, we're going to fall apart. That's simple. Abraham Lincoln once said, that. Oh, by the way, the actor is Jeff Daniels. My bad. I had a brain fart. Um, we have to stop this insanity. We have to find ways to come back together. We have to find ways to solve these problems. We have to lift people up and stop putting people down. We have to stop worrying what's going on in the bedrooms and start worrying what's going on in on our streets. We have to worry about what's going on in the boardrooms. We have to worry about what's going on in the community, in the city council chambers, the county commission chambers, and all of that. We have to hold our government accountable. We need to have government to protect us from the abuses of a corporate system that is reducing us to ball bearings in the great economic world machine. That's what it is. We want to just simply go, they want to simply go, okay, you're at a job, everything depends on it. If you lose your job, you're screwed. Your health care should not have to be tied to your job. Your sense of well-being should not be tied to your job. Yeah, you want to have a job to make money and survive and such, but, you know, what happens when times are economically hard and such and companies have to lay off? You know, I was a company 4 years ago that I thought I was going to be there until I retired. Then the pandemic comes along, business goes down, and they permanently laid off a third of the workforce. They are still not yet back up to what they were before the pandemic. And I doubt they ever will be. Now, I was fortunate. I got a job during the pandemic doing medical screenings, and it lasted for almost 2 years. Now I'm at my current job, and I'm, for the most part, like it. There are a lot of things that stress me out about it, and I could go into detail about why it sucks sometimes, but for the most part, I'll enjoy it because I'm in a position where I can do some good. But here's the thing. We have to understand that right now, we're not the greatest country in the world anymore. Not a political party really has a plan, in my view, that gets us there. There are pieces of it out there. And it's not going to be a matter of, oh, let's just everybody go to church, listen to Jesus. Nope. That's not that simple. That's not that easy. We have to build an infrastructure. We have to invest in public education. We have to invest in a accountable law enforcement. We have to, instead of just throwing people in prison, unless they're really, really violent, have a system where first offenders can get the help they need. We need to have a lot better than we have now. I compare it to this. We all have that favorite sports team. Every sports team has their great times. Every sports team has their tough times. It doesn't take a whole lot to get to back on top. We just have to commit to doing it. Like with my Carolina Panthers, we get an offensive line. We get some actual coaches in there that know what they're doing. We have an owner that stays out of the way of the GM and let the people who know football actually run the football team. And they could be back to where they were 8 years ago, playing in the Super Bowl. There's a lot of luck involved. We have to look at where we were, what made us great at one time, and get back there. What didn't make us so great, ignore. Look at what's going on in other countries. What are they doing? How can we learn from them? Hey, we could it wouldn't be the first time America's taken ideas from somebody else and applied it and adapted to fix ourselves. Look at our, a lot of our TV shows, our famous TV shows, some of them have actually come from overseas, were adapted from overseas. I can make a long list. We get better by understanding that we have to come together and stop being so divisive. We have to stop being about me and start being about we. We have to learn to compromise. We have to learn to come together to form coalitions. We have to learn to work together to come up with a problem that everybody can at least live with. Come up with solutions that everybody can at least live with. Not perfect, but at least live with. Until we do, guess what's going to happen? We're not going anywhere. We are a great country in a lot of ways. We have potential to be the best ever. But we've slipped. Our political system needs massive overhaul. Our society needs to stop being so greedy. We need to be more empathetic. We need to be nicer. In the words of George Herbert Walker Bush, kinder and gentler. Yes, we need people. We need people to be responsible for themselves, and but it does take a lot of, learning and understanding that we're not all right. Nobody has all the answers. No matter how much they say on their political speeches and whatnot, or on their podcasts like this. I don't have all the answers. I ain't even close. I have some ideas. I have some things that I think that might work. I have some ideas I know that will not work. But don't just listen to one podcast and think you're going to have all the answers. Nobody does. I don't. I have my analysis. I have enough knowledge to be able to tell you, hey, this ain't working or this is working. But the truth is that we have to work together. We have to lift other people up and not just pull people down. Come together. Because if we don't, it ain't looking good. But this is the reason why I look at this as a challenge and not just, oh, woe is us. No. We're like a team that's simply not playing that well. And we need to change things. Not, in some ways, we need dramatic reform. Some ways we don't. Some of the answers are simple. Well, we're going to talk about this another time. And I'll hope to expound upon this another time. I just wanted to come on here to expound upon that because, to be perfectly frank, this winter sucked. People have been sick. Work has stressed me out. And yeah, I have been in a really dark place. So I've kind of been in one of those things where I needed to get this off my chest. But in many ways, even though I do have my pessimistic side, I do have an optimistic side. I'm not a Pollyanna person. But I do understand that, yeah, things may not be that great now, but with some thinking and some working and some brainstorming, we can fix things. We just have to realize that not one person has all the answers. Not one person can save us. Or one group of people. We have to come together. We have to sometimes realize that all of our ideas aren't going to be perfect. But you take an idea here, you take an idea there, maybe, just maybe, we'll figure this stuff out. And get back to where we want to be. And maybe even go higher. It may not be perfect. Nothing is. But we need to be better than we are. And who knows? Maybe we can be back to being the absolute best. Maybe sometimes being the best isn't always all it cracked up to be. Every country thinks of themselves the greatest in the world. Australians think that their country's the greatest. Canada, Romanians, Norwegians, Senegalese, We're not the only people in the world think our country is the greatest in the world. Maybe the goal isn't just to be the greatest. Maybe the goal should be making ourselves feel like we're the best again. Lifting everybody up. Finding ways to better things for everybody. Can't just do it leave the government do it alone. And we can't just leave the private industry, private sector do it alone. There are no easy answers. Any politician tells you otherwise is lying through their teeth. But we'll get there. We just have to humble ourselves, admit that we don't have all the answers, and come together and actually talk about things. And I'll talk more about this another time. This is just some food for thought. I don't have all the answers. And I think in many ways, it is as bad as we think it is. Sometimes we think we're told it's not so great, when in reality it ain't as bad as it is, as we're told it is. In my honest opinion, we may not be the greatest country in the world. We're not at the bottom. We're far from it. We're right there. We could get back very easily. Sometimes you have to understand to solve a problem is to understand that there is a problem. And it's a matter of sometimes realizing, hey, with a tweak here, tweak there, you can get back to where you can get to where you once were. We just got to get there. And stop thinking that every one person has all the answers. They don't. The media should just be reporting the news and not commentating on it as much. Don't even get me started on that today. I'll do that another time. I will go into detail why I loathe the media in general these days. Even though once upon a time I wanted to be a person in the media. Well, that's it for today. Perhaps tomorrow I'll do that pandemic podcast, and we'll get to that and talk about it another time. But this country has a great bit of potential, a lot of potential. We're not where we need to be. We're not where we want to be. But if we can come together and stop dividing ourselves and stop demonizing others who may not have the same opinions as we do. Stop demonizing people that don't live the same way we do. Maybe we can come together and perhaps actually solve these things and be where we want to be. Anyhow, that's it for now. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.